Balance and proportion are two of the most important factors when it comes to creating an aesthetic physique. Any good structural plan begins and ends with the foundation in mind. And if you are not keeping balance and proportion as a high priority in your training, then you are going to run into a lot of problems down the line. So if you are someone who's brand new to working out or just starting off on their fitness endeavors, then I am so glad you found this video, because I'm going to avoid you a lot of pain down the line by creating certain weak points. Whereas if you are someone who's been training for a while and you haven't even taken into consideration the balance and proportion aspect of training, do not worry. I'm going to teach you exactly how you can avoid those weak points, and if you've already created those, how you can reverse them. Firstly, you need to understand that your weak points will be the biggest contributing factor to postural imbalances, as well as muscular imbalances between your upper, lower body, etc., and as well from a plane, so from left to right. And one of the biggest complaints I get from people is how they can go about fixing these left to right imbalances. Before we get into it, you need to understand that your genetics will play a large role in how your body is going to look, from muscle insertions to what side is actually going to be more dominant than the other. For an example, I'm sure you can imagine that if you were right-handed, your right arm is going to be typically a little bit bigger because you have used it more throughout your life, and as such, it's going to be a little bit stronger than the left side. We all have a different makeup, and as such, we will have to approach things in a different way. So here are a few things you need to keep in mind if you are looking to create a well-rounded, balanced physique, which will be a very large prerequisite for creating an aesthetic physique. Number one, you need to prioritize your weak points. As I mentioned before, balance and proportion are a very large contributor to an aesthetic physique. And if you are someone who enjoys hitting your chest quite a lot because it is a strong point, then I know it can be easy to get into those kinds of patterns. However, doing that is only going to create further imbalances. And if you want to create a balanced physique, your training needs to act and respond according to that. For an example, if your calves are a weak point or your abs are a weak point, then the first thing you will really want to do is to train them, because it can be very, very easy to turn a blind eye to these weaknesses and just say, well, I can cover them up by wearing some joggers, even if it's 100 degrees outside. I'll wear joggers because that will hide my calves. You can never ever change a weak point unless you pay a certain amount of attention to it. The second thing you want to do with these weak points is to prioritize them within your training. So not only do you want to train them, but you want to be giving them the prime attention. They should be a very important muscle, a VIM. And the way to go about prioritizing them is whatever workout you might be doing. It could be a leg workout where you're hitting quads, hamstrings, glutes, and your calves. Now, if your calves are the weakest out of that entire muscle group, then you will want to train them first, because that is when you have the most energy to put towards a certain exercise. Same goes if you are training chest and shoulders. Let's say your shoulders are the weak point, then you'll definitely want to be starting off with them. Essentially, prioritizing whatever your weakest muscle group is in the beginning of the workout is the better way to make progress within that weak point. The second thing you need to keep in mind, guys, is your posture and any postural imbalance that you may have created over a certain years of training. Your posture can be a very large contributing factor to any weak points that you might have. It's almost like a self-fulfilling cycle. So let's say you have a strong chest and a weak upper back, then your chest begins to round out and it continues to get stronger and stronger as the upper back begins to get even weaker and weaker as these postural imbalances continue to occur. So when you have postural imbalances, it's generally contributed to certain muscles being overactive and then certain muscles being weaker. As an example I just used, your chest and the front delt could be pulling yourself forward, creating rounder shoulders, and as such, the weaker muscles in your back are not being used accordingly. Therefore, to eliminate these weak points, you have to go to work in improving any postural imbalance that you might have. And that all comes down to strengthening those weaker muscles and loosening any tight muscles that you might have. Along the lines of the same example, if you do have rounded shoulders like this, then you want to kind of lay off the chest and shoulder training. Not all together, we don't want them just to wither away, but you need to have a priority around the weaker muscles that are creating those postural imbalances and work more so on strengthening any tighter muscles that are pulling you forward. So if there's one thing you can do right now to drastically improve your physique and overall aesthetic, is to improve your balance and your proportion. And one of the best ways to go about doing that is to make sure that you are not occurring any postural imbalances. So what you want to do, guys, right now, especially in the times that we find ourselves, you can do this from home, is just to work on improving your posture. That is the best foundation that you could set for yourself, because once we do start going back to the gym or training more efficiently and properly, then you'll have that solid foundation of a good posture, and as such, you can start to build an evenly built, strong, proportionate, and balanced physique, instead of just kind of like hammering away and hoping for the best at creating some sort of proportion. Now, as far as fixing a left to right imbalance, it's a lot easier than fixing a postural imbalance, imbalance, because all you really need to do, guys, is apply more volume and more attention to the specific side that is weaker. So the most prime example is the left arm to the right arm. The biceps are usually going to have an imbalance no matter how much effort you put towards them. It's very hard to create 100% balance between your left to right, because as I mentioned before, we typically are a one-side dominant species, and as such, you're going to be using one side for the entirety of your life, and it's very hard to reverse that and create a perfect balance. However, you can still go to work on improving these, and the best thing that you can do is whenever you are doing a specific exercise, you want to be adding more volume on the weaker side of your body. Alongside that, you will not want to be doing a lot of bilateral movements, and for an example of that is like a barbell curl. So instead, you want to be doing unilateral exercises, which is working from one side of the body as opposed to both. So that is a dumbbell curl, for an example. So when you do that, you are now allowing yourself to add in more volume on the weaker side of things. So for an example, if you are right-handed and you have been using your right arm quite significantly more than your left, and it's a lot stronger, then you want to be doing, say, 2 sets of here and 4 sets for the weaker point. This will by no means fix the imbalance altogether in like one workout. You still need to work on this over a long period of time, but over time, those imbalances will start to correct themselves, and then you can go back to bilateral training, and overall, you can build up your physique as a whole instead of focusing on these weak points. And this can be applied to any other part of your body. So for your calves, if one side is stronger than the other, then you want to be doing single leg calf raises and focusing more so on the weak side. Same goes with the quads. The best thing that you could do for your legs if you are struggling on one side is to do single leg press. I know you can't really do a single leg squat. It's very uncommon, and if you are putting a barbell on your back and doing a single leg squat, I'd probably implore you to stop doing that. Besides that, you could do lying leg curls and then glute kickbacks and leg extension, things that are gonna allow yourself to isolate more so on one side, as opposed to, you know, a compound exercise, which is gonna be extremely difficult to prioritize just one side. So along this, you'll still wanna be doing your main core exercises that are gonna build up your muscle mass overall, but then for extra added volume, you will not want to be completely destroying your strong side as much as your left side. You want to be evening it out and prioritizing more so to the weak points so they can come up, you can create that balance, you can create that proportion, and you'll be as good to go, guys. So that is the end of the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy this. If you did, make sure you smash that like button so it helps me out quite a bit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you're wondering where I got this sick ass t-shirt from, it's from Gymshark, and it's really cool. This is a Legacy Premium line, and it's out right now unless you're watching this video post 2020. And I hope it didn't just spark some crazy stuff in your head when I said 2020. But anyway, guys, that is the video. I hope you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new here, and I'll catch you in the next one.